Hi everyone, welcome to the Racist War on Everything. I am Fenian, and you're joined by Nolsey on what is
Hello.
Monday evening here in Perth. Kind of nice weather, and we're only 5 days away from the referendum on whether or not we'll amend our constitution and appoint an Indigenous advisory board to the federal parliament.
And if you
I
haven't
think
voted
we will.
yet, I will remind you to vote mega no. But just write NO in the box, otherwise they won't approve it.
Yeah, don't do you don't need to be outlandish with it. And remember, even if you put a cross in the box, as Clive Palmer said you should be able to do, that vote will be thrown out. But yeah, like I remember they had to tell people when they were voting on the gay marriage plebiscite. Some people wanted to do shit like draw rainbows and attach sparkles and shit to the paper. They're like, no, don't do that. You'll forfeit. You'll
Just
ruin the vote, you idiot.
write the characters NO, and then if you want to let out all your prejudice, just submit it into the box with prejudice.
Yeah. But yeah, look, we will be broadcasting live from about 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will have, well, maybe I shouldn't say right now, but I'm pretty sure we've got two, well-known guests in the bag for Saturday. There'll be, at least you'll get more than myself and Nolsey, that's for sure. And I should also just say that for that reason, we're not really going to be covering The Voice today. We don't want to get too repetitive and bore you too much with all that stuff. So
We've got something much
come
more
listen to
exciting
us.
for you.
Yeah, so it's definitely been the number one topic of conversation this year, and you'll get an overdose of it on Saturday. We'll be doing at least 3 hours, I'd say. So yeah, come listen to us then. And in the meantime, we'll go through all the other news in the past week of Australian politics. And look, let's go international, I guess, for a second. And that is, well, what's going on in Israel and the Gaza Strip right now. We're not going to do a full-on Ryan Dawson here because,
No.
well, that's just not what we do. We talk about Australia, so we're going to be talking about Australia's response. But last time I checked, the death toll was around 700 Israelis.
Yep.
Over 2,000 injured. Hundreds are suspected to have been captured or held hostage. And I'm not sure what the death toll is yet in Gaza. I imagine it must be in the hundreds by now.
Yeah, so
IDF
the last official from the ABC today was 400. I guarantee you it's higher than that right now. Israel has already been confirmed in sightings and military analysis to have used white phosphorus incendiaries in the Gaza Strip.
Right, and I mean, there's just no way that Israel is going to allow their body count to be higher than that of Palestine. Yeah. There is no way they're going to allow for that to happen.
Look, that number 700 comes from the Found Dead at that fucking gay music festival they had. The Rock Against Anti-Semitism. And two other places, a city in the south and the city in the north that is, basically saturated Palestinian territory. They're not talking about the other regions where the IDF and Israeli citizenry have faced off against Hamas, mostly because they're still under Hamas control. There's actually there was a statement or a minutes given today, very short minutes, from the conversation between the president of Egypt and the leader of Hamas, Hassim, basically saying that no, this is be all and end all at this point. This campaign is for total victory. We shall not talk about ceasefire. You are simply buying time for the US, and we understand you have brought this to our attention because of Anthony Blinken.
Okay. Well, look, to talk about the Australian response, it is much like what you would expect. You've got all sides of politics condemning it, talking about how this was nothing more than a deliberate attack on civilians and the innocent in Israel. I'd say
they're going to light up the MCG in white and blue.
Are they're doing it at the MCG? Are they?
Yeah, they're going to light it up in white and blue.
Okay, yeah, because one of the things I read is that Chris Minns is going to be lighting up the Opera House in
Yep.
In blue and white as well. So that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And I mean, there is a greater Jewish population in Melbourne and Victoria, so no surprise there. So this, funnily enough, is in a way a chance for the Labor Party to prove how pro-Israel they are, and they seem to be doing that. Well, what we just talked about there, that they're two Labor governments who are holding those, the blue and white lights and all of that. Penny Wong, who has been criticised as being sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, has come out and used rhetoric right in line with that of Peter Dutton in condemning Hamas here. I don't know about material support that has been promised, as Joe Biden was so quick to do, but I would imagine with the strength of the Australian Jewish lobby that there is definitely going to be at least some.
There will be.
If you watch, yeah.
Ukraine has actually been thrown under the bus right now by the US. Their next package of several billions of dollars and X amount of war material has been denied, and that is going to be sent over to Israel. Now, this isn't the first time that America has had a proxy war, and they've completely and utterly abandoned it to support Israel. Do you know about the other time, Venia?
No.
South Vietnam. A lot of aircraft, tanks, men, and money was pulled from South Vietnam to then go or be redirected to assist Israel during the Yom Kippur War.
Right.
So it's not the first time that America has ditched a pet project to protect the motherland of the real runners of America.
Oh, absolutely. It always shows where the priorities are. Even though there are Jewish interests in Ukraine, of course, there are a lot more in Israel. So, yeah, that's where the priorities are going to lie. Now, look, in terms of, the response outside of politics, and the media, I should say as well, because...
mostly positive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Basically, that's what I was going to say. Sky News, as you can imagine, is in an absolute frenzy over this. Like the amount of videos that are going at least 10 minutes that are posted on their YouTube channel is huge, because usually Sky News clips only go for like 3-4 minutes or so. They are loading these extended presentations, just going ballistic about it, and having all of these interviews with people like Josh Burns, in other words, prominent Jews in Australia, about it. But if you look at like the ABC website that I was on just a second ago, still like the top 5 stories are something to do with it, but they tend to be on Israel's side pretty much the whole time. Like, the language about the targeting of civilians and everything is pretty much
look up Twitter
in line with that of Sky News.
Yeah, one of the things I've seen on Twitter, which is kind of making me hopeful, is that more or less every single nation, even a good quantity of Americans and people in the UK, good quantity of Irish, and that's for historical reasons, are supporting Palestine in this intifada. It's been a nice thing to see. One of the things I saw on Twitter, which is a complete mindfuck, is an Indian account named Adolf Hitler posting a image saying the liberal West, Muslims, blah blah blah, and then on tugging a rope, and on the other side is Benjamin Netanyahu. He's like pro-Israel, and then like the finger of God. It's only Indians who are trying to suck Jew dick at this point, and they're pretty much getting BTFO'd by AI generated shit rocket gifs. So it's not going too well. And they complained about this last time. They complained about this in 2021, where there was multiple articles from Tablet, Haaretz, The ADL's already complained about it right now. I imagine the articles from Tablet and Haaretz will be out soon, saying that Israel is losing the support of the wider populace of the world.
They're losing the PR war. So I think one of the signs of that really starting to happen was, if we all remember the footage of that fat guy from New York saying, if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it. Of course,
he might be not so chill as me. He might be not so down to earth and chill as me.
Yeah.
Like, why are you blaming
back
me?
when they were bulldozing all of those houses, and they were actually just saying it was nothing more than like landlords evicting tenants who weren't paying rent. Remember, that was the spin that Israel was trying to put on it.
Yeah, that was a fucking disgusting.
Nightmare. Yeah, I know, and that's not what it was, by the way. It was just blatant evictions and destruction of Palestinian homes and incursions on their territory. That's what it was, and people saw that. They believed that was actually what was happening. This was not just evictions or something. And then that fat guy was like the icing on the cake. That was brilliant. And that was when I started to see that even though the media was trying to kind of cover up for them a lot of the time, although they did like blow up that building of that news network as well, that was bad optics too. That was very, very bad. And now, despite the fact there's saturation coverage and even the ABC playing nice,
no one fucking likes you.
We are seeing so much support for Palestine at the moment through obviously social media, but also on the streets. So there was a rally at Lakemba in Sydney last night, I believe. So as in Sunday night. Probably listening to this on a Tuesday, and this was well, as you can imagine, organised by Sydney's Muslim community. Ironically, it was at the Lakemba Mosque that Anthony Albanese had just visited as this show of religious solidarity for the yes vote for the Indigenous voice. So they had been joined only a few days prior by members of the Jewish community standing with them in support of the Aboriginal voice. Yep. So how's that unity looking now?
And the Australian National Council for Imams has refused to disavow pro-Palestinian rallies in this country as well, even though anti-Semitic slurs were said during it. I just sent you a little fucking image, and this is AI generated, obviously, but I think this is a good thumbnail.
There was like I remember there was a guy who like parasailed or something, however you say, into the territory.
Yeah, paraglided. But yeah. Oh, there was a lot of them. That's actually how they were getting in for the first bit of it, including now Lebanon was mortared and then returned missile fire. Israel mortared Lebanon. Because it was more or less figured out that the dirigible boats that were showing up on the south and north of Israel, with PLO people or Hamas people on it, were actually being launched from Lebanon.
Right. Yeah, and it's amazing that like Israeli intelligence didn't see this coming, because apparently there was Iran played a role in putting the plans together as well. And yeah, somehow they were able to do this without Mossad detecting it. But yeah, look, I got to say just quickly that I'm sort of in two minds when I see these pro-Palestine rallies. Like, I'm sure I could go up and have a good chat to a lot of these guys here, but I still have to remind myself in a way that this still shows how what?
They're not us.
They're not us, no. And the very fact that they're out here showing that they have so much more allegiance to Palestine than they do to Australia, is obviously indicative of that. And that's part of the reason why I also say I don't like Simeon Boykov, the Russian Cossack, because it's like, okay, you do Russian shit, but like, this is not Russia at the end of the day. And if you're here and you actually want to be a nationalist, you need to be an Australian nationalist. Okay?
Yeah, I'll support you for as long as you're causing troubles for my oppressors.
You know, you can have dual loyalty or whatever. You know, someone like Mehdi, I guess you could, because he's a Greek nationalist. I'm an Irish nationalist too, but I don't let that shit get in the way of what I believe. And with these guys, it's actually just all they believe. They are just Palestinian nationalists, or they're Muslims standing in solidarity, and
Yeah.
their allegiance to Australia is basically zero. It's
Yeah,
basically nothing.
we're an economic zone to them, and honestly, in most days, this is an economic zone to me as well.
Right.
Or at
So
least
that's why
that's
I
what it's
say,
become.
take your support for these rallies with a pinch of salt, and just remind yourself that these people are invading you as well. Okay,
Yeah,
they're part
yeah.
of the Jewish golem of opening the floodgates of immigration.
Well, we can just rejoice that it's become a pain in their ass. They fucked up, and we'll just leave it at that, because it's good that problems going to be caused, because back in the day, how many of these organizations back in the day were getting their asses invaded by Israeli-based NGOs? I can name a few. But yeah, like I'll support them in rhetoric, so long as they're causing problems for Israel. But outside of that, you you we're not friends.
The enemy of my enemy is my ally. Let's say,
Yeah,
perhaps. Let's put it that way for now.
that's
Perhaps not
succinct
outright.
enough.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get on to the other news of the week. And, well, we're going to kick that off with a discussion of immigration, which is suitable for us. Now, this was to do with a report that was handed down. So this was by the former Victorian Police Commissioner Christine Nixon. So it was known as the Nixon Review. Nothing to do with the former president, of course. And this described quote here, almost industrial scale exploitation of vulnerable temporary migrants and international students amid a wider review of Australia's immigration policy. So, this was critical in particular of migration agents who, we should all be familiar with the kind of unscrupulous practices that they're known to do. This report more or less just confirmed what we already knew. But I think actually identified some of those agents who are, no doubt probably going to be hearing from the police now, or at least they should be. So they found that these agents were rorting the visa system, and also that Australia's migration system was being exploited by organised criminals for human trafficking. So the relevant minister, Claire O'Neill, she's the Minister for Home Affairs. Also, Andrew Giles is to do with this too, because he's immigration. As you can imagine, they have blamed the former government here. And when talking about these matters, they can do the double whammy of blaming Peter Dutton too, because he was the former Home Affairs Minister. So, in response to this, the government has announced $50 million to establish a new division and strike force within Home Affairs that will boost immigration compliance. It's going to target the abuse of immigration programs and resolve the status of people whose visa options have been exhausted. Now, that last point, that's a bad point, okay? What they're talking about there...
visas.
They're talking about bridging visas, and they're also talking about expediting the application process as well. So, I mean, look, one of the other stories that I have here was one from the ABC, which was about the increase in the amount of parents who are waiting for their visas to be, their applications to be resolved. So, tens of thousands, they say here. So the system only allows for around 8,500 permanent places for parents of Australian children. Of the parents of people who are living in Australia. Most of them are not children by this age. And at the moment, the wait list is around 143,000 people over several parent visa categories. Now, the ABC ran this sob story because it's supposed to be one of those like, oh, won't you think of the old people? And here's what they attack the government over in this regard. There is a view in the government that elderly people will become a burden on the government and a burden on the taxpayer. Well, yes, that's true. Okay. That's why a lot of visas have an age limit, because the older you are, the less likely you are to work, or the less likely you are to work for a long time, and therefore contribute tax money yourself into the system. And, the sooner you will go on the pension or start claiming Medicare or whatever it is. Every country in the world operates along those economic lines when it comes to who you give visas to. So, and by the way, it's not just people waiting on those various parent visas. There's just a backlog generally, that started to accumulate ever since the COVID restrictions were brought down. And yeah, that means the government is now spending even more money to push all of those applications through. So they're also going to be giving extra powers to the Migration Agents Registry Authority. That is basically it's the regulatory authority over migration agents and migration lawyers. So they're going to have their resources double the funding. I don't know how much that is, but it must be a fair bit. And penalties for agents who are involved in misconduct. So I know that their penalties are already fairly severe. Like if you do get caught with something, you're at the least you're going to get a suspension. Now, if you get suspended, that's that's quite a black mark on your record, and kind of hard for you to recover from that point. So, but look, despite that, even though the current penalties can be pretty strong, they've still been doing this shit for years. And, one of the most common tactics is to work hand in hand with labor hire companies. The labor hire companies, are there to kind of help large corporations get around statutory rights for employees.
Hey, they're not your employees. They're like temporary contractors you hire. They're not your employees, but you can get a long-term temporary contractor license. Long-term temporary. Yeah. There we go.
They're independent entrepreneurs, and how dare you interfere with their autonomy and the flexibility that they want in their working arrangements? Okay, but then what actually happens? Well, they sign them all up. They promise them that, hey, you're going to be on a permanent visa in only 2 years' time or something. And then all of a sudden they get shipped off to somewhere where they're on a massive farm fruit picking for 12 hours a day, told to hand back about half their wages. And if they complain about any of it, well, you'll just be deported again. They could not do this shit without migration agents. So if they need to actually crack down further on them, then good.
Well, I don't even think the crackdown's going to work, and I think you're probably of the same opinion, because the system itself is designed for this kind of thing. It's designed to get warm bodies into this country, eyes and hands, to exploit them. It's something we've been harping on for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, however, going to a related portfolio or a related policy, the IR Minister Tony Burke did say that he wants to basically make it illegal to threaten employees with, deportation. If they say, hey, if you complain or if you tell anyone about your shitty conditions here, you're going to be deported. Well, the government says you shouldn't be able to issue that threat in the first place. But again, it's it's going to be hard to catch them doing that, isn't it? They're just going to lie about it.
They'll just fucking fire them, and then their fucking visa will just go out. That's it. They don't need to say anything.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's just the threat is there. The threat is already implied in your contract, and they can just say, in the event that your employment is terminated, well, that means your visa is null and void. And yeah, you don't need a direct threat to know that. Most of them already do. So yeah, that's the crux of it there. Now, the deficiencies that exist at the moment. So Claire O'Neill is saying that, as you can imagine, it's all the previous government's fault. And No, she did cite figures here, though, to be fair. So between 2013 and 2022, the number of immigration compliance staff was cut from 360 to 203. Labor is going to bring that staffing level back to 290. So that's still 70 short of the 2013 levels. But they're saying because of the fact that immigration is currently a broken system, and I assume also because they want to be more frugal in these tough economic times, that they're not bringing the compliance staffing back to full capacity. So they're still in line with the previous cuts that Malcolm Turnbull, Scott Morrison, and also Peter Dutton as Home Affairs Minister made. This new division is going to be called the Compliance Division. They're going to invest $50 million over 4 years to ensure the integrity of the system. And that goes along with all those extra penalties and everything I just mentioned as well. That could even mean jail time for migration agents. So maybe that will inject a little bit of a deterrent effect, even if they are weak at kind of sniffing out the agents who are doing these kind of things. But,
as cynical as I kind of generally am, do you think they're going to see jail time? There might be one.
Not many. There was a Vietnamese guy who is up on serious charges lately, who was just doing the typical slave labor stuff, bringing people over to pick fruit, much like what I described before. And he's one of the rare cases because he was doing it on an enormous scale, and he was actually I think he had YouTube ads and stuff as well. So he was one of those sort of minor celebrity ones. you know how you get minor celebrity plastic surgeons and doctors sometimes. He was kind of one of those types. Had a full-on Instagram account, all that shit. He looks like he's going to be put behind bars. But there's not many. It's only those really sort of blatant, in-your-face ones that make themselves too visible. Okay. The last bit on immigration was just that we have a Grattan Institute report that says international graduates are being given false hope for permanent residency pathways. Yeah, I don't deny that at all. Like I've said before, migration agents very often make the promise of permanent residency. Say, if you do this visa, you can very quickly move on to this one that's a permanent one. But then, for all sorts of reasons, they don't get there. They may not have the proper qualification. They may not be able to find work here or work in the field that they were specified to be working in because that's what's related to their studies at university. Maybe they thought they could get on a partner visa and then their partner left them. There's a whole slew of things. But the main thing, though, is the very fact that a lot of these people are just simply unemployable. So, I'll never tire of pointing out the guy. This was at Murdoch University here in Perth. There was an Indian student who was doing his master's in IT, and he didn't know what a thumb drive was. Now, do you really think that guy could have gotten a job in tech when he graduated? If he graduated? He was from Murdoch, so he did push him through because that shit was just rife at Murdoch. Probably still is. But, what
Likely
chance has he got, of then going into a field related to his study and then using that new employment as a means of getting a permanent visa? He's got fucking no chance of doing that because no one's going to hire him. What does he do instead? He goes and drives the Uber and then keeps on going more and more temporary visas. So continues to compete with the working class, but not with the middle class that he was supposed to join as a result of getting that qualification.
Just recognize all of their degrees and beat the balls of companies that refuse to hire them. Yeah, that's what you need to do.
About to say that. Well, now we're doing the not the opposite, but we're doing this other stupid thing where our free trade agreement with India means that we start actually recognizing these degrees that they have over there. And, if they're producing students who don't know what a thumb drive is, that should give you an idea of the caliber of student that will be coming over here. And yeah, at least some of those employers are going to be fooled into thinking that these people have the necessary skills. And then watch out for all the industrial scale accidents that they're going to cause. Okay. So let's go to climate and energy here. Now, we have yet another new report here. Wait. Sorry, not a new report. We have a new climate organization. This is a multi-faith organization, meaning people from multiple religious sects and denominations from around the country coming together to urge governments to take more action on climate change. This is called the Australian Religious Response to Climate Change, the ARRCC. Uniting religious communities for, I love this term, climate justice. You know why they use that term, justice? It's because, lawfare is their most popular means of fighting for climate change policies.
We saw this with the superannuation funds. Now we're going to see it across the board. But also, it's a time-tested and true tradition to turn religions into death cults for government means.
You can maybe say that, but I mean, I remember it was very controversial that, George Pell, he was actually basically a climate change denier. So, him being sort of seen as the kooky face of the Australian religious right always had that pointed out about him. And perhaps gave people the wrong impression that churches, or maybe even just the Catholic Church in particular in Australia, was, anti-climate action. That's not true, okay? You had George Pell and that was about it, all right? And just because he was our most senior Catholic doesn't mean he spoke for all of them, far from it. I mean, if you look at all of the cucky Anglican ones in particular, they love this stuff. But yeah, the other reason they refer to it as climate justice here is because in this case, this is where, they're really talking about climate change as a moral issue. And we have to always consider what kind of world we're leaving for our children. Are we going to leave them one on some kind of environment that has been wrecked by global warming and flash flooding and everything else? Meanwhile, we are destroying the European base of the West, which is doing ever so much more to actually destroy the standard of living that we have. And you can even argue this on a position of fighting for climate change, because the more and more of these brown people you let in, the more and more emissions go up. And, that's the nub of it when it comes to how, according to them anyway, how do you actually fight climate change? You reduce emissions. Well, our carbon footprint goes up for every Pajit that you let into this country and other industrial countries every single time. But they don't seem to recognize that, or at least put their fingers in their ears over it.
Okay. Will they fucking ever?
No. Okay, so here's another place that we continue to pour money into. So, all right. Pacific Island nations that we pay all of this money to, supposedly for climate relief funds, and that's to do with usually just the flooding that they have given their geographical location. But every time there's a flood, no matter how big it is in Tonga or whatever, we're always told it's because of climate change. And Australia, being a big polluter, therefore has an obligation to spend all of this money on them. That never actually does get built to do, build things like dikes, the kind that keep water out. They just use it for the everyday stuff putting money in the hands of corrupt bureaucrats. That's usually where it goes. But anyway, this is to do with the the Green Climate Fund. So this is a UN body, and Scott Morrison said that he would no longer tip money into the Green Climate Fund at the behest of international agencies. Now we've got our new Foreign Minister Penny Wong. She said that Australia would resume support for the fund with a modest contribution before the end of the year. Now, this comes before the Pacific Islands Forum, which is in the Cook Islands in a month's time, where Anthony Albanese will be there, and he'll be facing renewed calls from regional counterparts for Australia to ban new fossil fuel projects. And there are even talks from these Pacific Island nations who are putting the forum together to ban Australia from speaking there, basically unless it starts tipping enough money into the Green Climate Fund, which, as I said, never pays for climate relief. It's just bribe money to Pacific Island nations. That's all
it pays for Toyota Hiluxes and cans of Spam.
Yes, pretty much. Now,
and KFC
we are also told, though,
Kentucky Fried Chicken family buckets.
But apparently, it's not just the money that we put into the Green Climate Fund that's the issue. It's also because of Australia's $245 billion a year coal and gas sectors, which the Pacific Island, they call them elders, urging regional leaders to back down from supporting. So yeah, look, they have to say that. I don't think they give a shit about our resources sector whatsoever. This is just how you sell the idea that it's all about fighting climate change so that Australia just throws more money into the tip jar. That's all it is. So of course you got to.
I think people would be fucking more understanding. Like, just be fucking honest. Like, here's the one fucking thing you could do as a statecraft move. Just be fucking honest. I think the Australian population would understand saying, "Hey, look, we are just straight up bribing these fuckers, so they don't become like a geopolitical like burden to us." I think the fucking average Australian populace would be okay with that. They'd be like, "Okay, this makes sense."
I've heard conservative commentators say that about Papua New Guinea, for example. The very fact that we pay for their internet, like their entire internet infrastructure is paid for and built by Australia.
Indonesia as well.
Yeah, but like that's true. We do that to stop them from like killing each other because they have bands
eating
of warring
each other.
Cannibals. Yes, they're literal cannibals. Like they kill each other and eat each other. And we pour all this money into their police force and to, just generally bribe money to keep the peace over there.
Go find a 50+ ADF like infantry or ADF just army in general guy and ask him how was East Timor, and trust me, he will tell you about like sending artillery shells into a village, and then the guys that they're meant to be your comrade in arms in a foreign nation, descending into that village to rape and eat people. They've all got stories like that.
Yeah. So I mean, look, like bribery. This, like in foreign relations terminology, they refer to it as good governance. And that's to do with, the strings that are attached to foreign aid money. We give you X amount of money if you commit to this program of good governance. And yeah, like I said, in the case of PNG, it's like don't eat each other. It doesn't always go according to plan though, because things have ramped back up in PNG with more tribal warfare.
They abducted that fucking New Zealand pilot recently.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I shouldn't laugh.
They're probably going to eat him.
Sadly, yeah. I mean, look, I haven't read an update on that in a while. Hopefully not. But, yeah, it could definitely turn in that direction. Okay.
How much money would you have to pay me to fly to fucking Papua New Guinea?
Oh, hell no. No way.
I don't think money will be the option.
Woman. Like, you can pretty much guarantee to be raped if you're a woman.
And then eaten. At least the machete is going to split my head in half, and then I'm going to be eaten. No, bitch, you're gonna get fucking brutally raped and then eaten.
About 2/3 of PNG women, according to Amnesty International, have been sexually assaulted. The majority. That's pretty fucking scary. Okay. So let's jump over to defense. Now, one of our Australian identities has made the headlines in conjunction with Donald Trump, funnily enough.
Oh, yeah, Pratt.
This is Anthony Pratt from the illustrious Pratt family. They descend from Polish Jews.
Jewish, yeah.
Yep, they're absolutely Jewish to the core. And Anthony Pratt basically has a cardboard manufacturing empire, and he's one of Australia's richest men.
Okay, so here's a thought experiment for all those out in the fucking hinterlands. When is the last time you've heard about a Jewish emigre coming to another country and then immediately becoming a fucking multi-billionaire?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Have you heard of that? Last time I checked, most Polish people just go to another country, they become like some kind of laborer, etc. But no, this random Polish citizen just goes to another country, and then his family gets all these high capital, barely any interest loans from some private banks. That's weird. Right.
But also,
wouldn't happen to be the fact that he's Jewish. Yeah, that too.
Harry Treebuff as well.
High rise Harry. Wow, that's a weird coincidence. Is there a common factor between these two?
Okay. Now, what this is about is that Donald Trump did have a meeting with Anthony Pratt a couple of years ago, I believe, and it was reported that they discussed potentially sensitive details of America's nuclear submarine program. So that was obviously where they were talking about AUKUS, the new military pact between Australia, the UK, and the US. The fact that we are still supposed to be manufacturing nuclear submarines right here, in Adelaide, actually. But we all know that's not going to happen. So, of course, you've got this Australian billionaire talking with the former president about America's nuclear submarine program, because the only way we're going to get nuclear submarines is if we get them from America. There's no other way.
I guarantee you, I 100% guarantee you, Trump was fencing this information to him to save his ass in the Jewish community, because Pratt's a liberal Jew. I guarantee you, he's not a liberal party. No, as in like left-leaning Jew.
Oh, okay.
Or like as much left-leaning as a Jew can earnestly be. I guarantee you, Trump was fencing this information to him, so he would get like get the foot half out of his ass. I guarantee you. It wouldn't have been for money. It wouldn't have been for anything else to say like, hey, look, when I eventually get shit canned, because I know I'm going to get shit canned, can it just be a play shit canning than a real shit canning?
Well, I guess the timing of that would sort of line up, because this meeting was said to have happened at Mar-a-Lago, of course, the big clubhouse in Florida, and that was several months after Trump left office.
Yeah.
So it is reported that Anthony Pratt then shared that information with at least 45 people, including journalists and employees, as well as 10 Australian officials and 3 former prime ministers. So you basically have a case here of a Jew being fed American nuclear secrets and then disseminating that information among the Australian elite, essentially.
I even interacted with some of the Free Assange people, because some of the Free Assange people picked up on the story as well. And they're like saying, I don't understand. Like, if Assange is in jail for sharing secret information, and Pratt is also an Australian citizen, like, why isn't he in cuffs right now? And the only answer is, he's Jewish. That's it.
That's a very good point to make as well. So, I mean, in this case, like if it's a document or something, Julian Assange would, he is a journalist in the respect that he has sources, he's fed information, and then he simply releases that information. So, like, if I were to, I don't know, hack into some account and I managed to get someone's medical records, and then I posted those records on the internet, I would have committed a crime by doing that. But what if, say, someone else did the hacking and then simply just emailed me those records? It's not illegal for me then to go and, like, publish that.
And Pratt straight up fenced himself personally American nuclear secrets.
Yep.
And we're too late for the Rosenbergs to happen again. We're too far down the fucking line.
Right. But I'm also just wondering if Pratt was trying to just get in on this, if he was able to make money from it.
Oh, well, like, dude, the money angle is always there with these people.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I'm not saying that he would be manufacturing those submarines here in Australia, but he could be involved in it in some manufacturing capacity, because I mean that's what he does. He makes cardboard. Maybe he could make those cardboard drones or something.
No, like cardboard is actually used in a lot of things. Like, for example,
well, there are those cardboard drones. Do you remember them? We were
in
apparently
Ukraine,
an Australian
the
invention.
Embarrassment.
Yeah.
We're just going to get a J-card drone with a fucking camera on it and make it out of cardboard and send it over there. That's an embarrassment. That is...
It was, yeah. That was the only reason we covered that story at the time.
Yeah. No, but like, I guarantee you that Pratt fenced this information to whoever he whoever he told it to for the sake of influence and seeming bigger than he was, and Trump fenced it to him for influence with that section of the Jewish community.
Right. Well, look, Donald Trump has said, well, through a spokesman, that this dissemination of the information in Australia constitutes illegal leaks that lack proper context and relevant information. So it said, the Department of Justice should investigate the criminal leaking instead of perpetrating their baseless witch hunts while knowing that President Trump did nothing wrong, has always insisted on truth and transparency, and acted in a proper manner according to the law. So, all depends on, like, the details here of just how Pratt was relayed all of this information or not. But yeah, hopefully a lot more people will start to to know the name of Anthony Pratt after not too long. Okay. So, we're going to talk a bit about crime here. If you don't live in Western Australia, you might not have heard of this story. It was a really sickening, sad story of a girl who was raped. She was admitted to a children's hospital here and then was raped again. Now, she's 13. The boy in question is also said to be 13. And it happened at the hospital that she was in. So she is not going to be taking a stand against the rapist because it's deemed to be too traumatic for her. These events are fairly recent. They're obviously traumatizing, and I can understand that, how they wouldn't want to put her on the stand and everything. But because of that, like, this little shit is gonna just kind of go free. So anyway, look, the court was told that when they looked at CCTV footage from the night, it showed the boy was spending about half an hour crawling across the floor to the girl's room, using furniture to try to avoid being seen by the cameras or nurses. So he kind of moved like a snail to be undetectable.
The ultimate predator.
In a way, but I mean, look, man, I hate to say it, but it worked. Him doing that didn't, help him get away with it. So he has pleaded not guilty to the charges against him, and he is saying that the sex between them was consensual. The lawyers are also arguing that he did not have the mental capacity to know what he was doing was wrong. Okay, what about what I just described, though? The fact that he used furniture and moved at a very slow pace to hide his movements throughout the hospital floor to get to her. He obviously knew that he was going to the room to do something wrong or illegal, and he tried to cover that up. So I'm sorry, I just don't fucking buy that, guys, that he did not have the mental capacity.
Bob, can I take a guess? What is mental competence?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, now look, the children's court it's run by one judge, Judge Hilton Quayle, who was the biggest fuckwit ever. Says that they're running a torture chamber at Banksia Hill, and that basically no children deserve to go there. But he has said that it is not viable for the safety of the girl for her to give evidence in the case here. Now, Jesus Christ, the fact that this kid was actually in the hospital with her, though, like, that is just insane. Absolutely insane that happened.
I love the modern world.
So look, Roger Cook, our new premier who took over from Mark McGowan, he, in the initial days of this story breaking, said not a word of it. By the way, this was said to have occurred about a month ago. Sorry?
Robin Cock.
Yeah, we can call him that. So he has said that the system, I assume he's just talking about the hospitals here, are being improved following the rape that occurred. This includes $7 million for redesigning the ward and increasing staff levels. But he denied that the ward was not fully staffed on the night of the incident. I don't think that's the issue. This prick shouldn't have been in a hospital. He should have been in Banksia Hill, in an observation cell. That's where he should have been.
Or a wood chipper.
Yeah.
Multiple options here.
He very at least should have had his fucking balls removed before this point.
Hey,
so, yeah, I mean,
I've got the cattle castrator right here.
But this is exactly what happens when we keep pretending that these kids are nothing but sweet and innocent. Okay? We simply just look at their age and make a judgment based on that. No, a 13-year-old can be a fucking murdering rapist. They absolutely can be, particularly out in the Aboriginal community here. All right? Now, it's not hyperbole. 80% of the juvenile population is Aboriginal. I don't know the race of this kid.
You never will.
But but look, it's sounding, because unfortunately, it fucking boils my blood, but usually it is a case of an Aboriginal boy raping a white girl or another Aboriginal girl. But if it's interracial, it's always Aboriginal on white rape that happens here in WA. Always.
We do have Pakistan. Oh, we do have actually a lot of Pakistani children in that place as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it could be that. It could be, from one of the other delightful hues.
Also, like,
from the third world.
Do you expect an Aboriginal child to Metal Gear Solid his way through a fucking through a nursing ward?
I guess so. Yeah, that might be a bit more high agency doing something like that.
I've got a very terrible joke, so I'm not going to say it.
No, I mean, this is just one of those sickening fucking stories where I just, oh man, really, really triggers me. But yeah, look, because of the fact that she is not going to be testifying, that meant that the 3 charges against him that related to sexual penetration of a child have been dropped. So that's it. This little cunt's going to get away with it.
Lovely.
Okay,
a little
now also related to Banksia Hill, we now have what the ABC referred to as the notorious Unit 18. Unit 18 is at Casuarina Prison,
adults.
Which is our... Yeah, so Casuarina Prison is like our... probably also our most notorious adult prison. But Unit 18 keeps inmates from Banksia Hill. Basically those who were deemed too dangerous to keep at Banksia Hill. Because remember, prison officers carry like pepper spray, handcuffs, batons, stuff like that. Youth custodial officers do not.
I've got another meeting with the CO from Casuarina. He also did a stint at Banksia. He told me that Unit 18 was basically a pack of fucking ferals. Yeah, they were like
It is.
relatively young, but they're like, late 17s, like
Yeah,
all
well, I was going to
they're
say they
18.
tend to be 17, 18 years old. So they're the older ones.
Yeah,
Some of them
either
are
they're like
adults, 18.
yeah, like either they were charged when they're 16 of something that they can be adult criminally charged with when they're 16. Most of them have like fucking paperwork that is, longer than your fucking body. Um, and basically the description of them generally is a bunch of fucking ferals.
Yeah, and by the way, they don't just meet those characteristics that you just named. It's also that they are known for attacking staff at Banksia Hill.
Yep.
Okay,
Oh, they
so
only
one
let
of
men
them,
around them now. They learned from that incident several months ago where that woman got her head bashed in, that female
yes, that
CO.
yes. So I mean, I know that one of them who ended up in Unit 18 had actually assaulted a guard with a broom, and then another one. Oh, I can't remember what it was. But it was two attacks, and it wasn't until I think he was 18. He had attacked two staff. A fucking rap sheet as long as you can imagine. It was only then that he was transferred to this unit. Now, I don't know who it is here. They're not naming who it is. But we
They
do
can't.
have a youth custodial officer by the, oh no, sorry, prison guard at Casuarina Prison, because this is our Unit 18, Daniel Travis Ratton. He's being charged with assault because he restrained a kid by holding him down and putting his knee into his torso.
Daniel
Which
is a hero amongst the COs over there.
Okay, I hadn't heard that, but I can imagine. Now, the reason he's being charged here, or as far as I can tell, is because this kid didn't assault him, didn't come up and hit him or anything like that, but he charged at him. He charged at him. He saw him coming, and it was then that he decided to restrain him by putting his knee into his torso. Now, as I said, I don't know who this kid is, but given what we just went through,
I
the
don't know who
type of
that kid
person
is, but I
who.
do know the story, or I've heard the story.
Oh, okay.
Basically,
Well,
the kid
I'll
was
just
wailing.
quickly
Oh,
say
sorry.
that the profile of all of those people in Unit 18 is that of teenagers who are on the older side, lengthy criminal record, and history of attacking staff. So I have no doubt that this kid
Yep.
who was restrained here would be any different.
Apparently, this kid, obviously, like my little informant didn't give me his name because he's legally not meant to, but he was rapping on the little fucking they're not bars. They're like it's more like a screen, and
Right.
he'd done this before where he raps on the bars and he gets himself all hyped up, and then he charges and like beats whatever CO is in front of him. So he'd done this 5 times. So basically, as a
Right.
CO, you're told to like clean yourself up, go to the bathroom, clean yourself up, and take antihistamines or
Mm.
anti-inflammatories to make sure you don't look like shit the next day. So he'd done this multiple times. So he was just waiting and ready because this was a known behavior of this particular inmate. So he was just waiting and ready for him. Fucking grabbed him, put him on the ground, and then just fucking just went into him, or restrained him in a reasonable fucking way, to be honest. Because they're all fucking ferals. It's a pack of animals down there.
It
Like
is. Unit 18 is the worst, literally the worst of the worst youth criminals in the state. You don't get any worse than them.
yeah,
So it's no surprise that it kicks off like that. And this poor guy. I probably shouldn't have even read out his name because, like, his full name, his age, and everything, his photo, of course, is just fucking plastered all over these ABC news stories. And even if he's found guilty, found not guilty, he's already been convicted in the court of public opinion, and he'll probably never go to
uh,
work again, huh?
he probably should be fine. A lot of these CEOs have ends with security contractors as well, so he'll just be pushed over to there. But like that's not the case for everyone. A lot of these
No,
people just get
I
the
mean,
shit kicked out of them and they fucking leave, and then they're kind of fucked up physically.
yeah,
So
and they have the fucking media pressure to add to all of that. you know?
I mean, you can only get your orbital broken too many times until one of your eyes start bulging out.
Yeah, which unfortunately does happen.
Yeah.
One of the riots that they had there, I remember they said, resulted in skull injury for a female staff member. So
Yeah, she got her head bashed in with a fucking like a it's explained as like a lump of debris. I guarantee you they chiseled loose a piece of concrete and just went at her with it.
Jesus Christ.
Bunch of
Yeah,
fucking animals down there.
Yeah, but it's all these guards. They're the bad guys, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they're the bad guys. They're the fucking zookeepers in the fucking like turbo chimpanzee fucking zoo.
Right. Okay, so look, here's another sob story about our detainees. If you don't believe that the ABC is running a campaign on this crap, but this is where they're talking about the lack of assessments of fetal alcohol disorder or spectrum disorder, as well as other, let's say, mental issues. Like, well, whatever. They're just going on about
like being a
psychological
savage.
assessments. That, yeah, well, look, what this really is about is the fact that a lot of these kids that are up on charges or they've been convicted of various violent crimes and everything, and they want to be able to go to the court and say, well, it's not my fault because I've got FASD or because I had this traumatic event happen to me or whatever it is. That's what it always is. Now, so in the case here, they went to the children's court run by Justice Quayle, and they said, well, look, we're pleading guilty, but we're also saying that he has FASD. Can you adjourn the case? Can you adjourn it so that we have time to go and get the relevant assessments done and then present those documents to the court? So that's what Justice Quayle did. They took 6 weeks off. The court comes back, and then they're like, sorry, we still don't have the documents yet. All right. So that means they just have to keep delaying it, essentially, until they get these documents. I'm thinking they probably think that's a winning strategy. You know, you just keep delaying everything. Avoid conviction that way.
Well, it works in every other fucking court of this land.
Yeah. But apparently, yeah, we just need to feel sorry for these kids again because they don't have the kind of psychologists who can effectively give them notes. It's actually, it's almost literally a get out of jail free card. You know, you have this mental disorder, therefore you're innocent.
What FASD causes is not like fucking like levels of premeditated violence. If you've ever seen how like curmudgeonly a dementia patient is, FASD kids are born with basically alcohol-induced dementia and delirium. So,
yeah. And their faces look really old.
Yes,
They
that's
look like
one thing
old
too.
drunk men.
Yeah, unfortunately, because they've been drunk for a good share of their life at that point.
Yep.
You know, fuck the mother, to be honest, for being a fucking drunkard bitch. But
well, look, the way the ABC describes it here, it says that FASD can affect things like emotional regulation, cognition, and the ability to understand consequences.
it does intellectually impact you, but it only just. Have you ever met like an old person with wet brain?
With what?
Wet brain.
Wet brain. I've not heard that term before.
If you're a pisshead for a good 40 fucking years, you'll end up with something called wet brain. It's not a common thing in Australia just because it can be, you know, kind of like staved off by vitamin D. But wet brain is like delusional and kind of like recessing to like an earlier, more stable section of your neurons because of damage from alcohol. You also get like alcohol-induced dementia on like long-term drunks and in their like late 50s and etc. They're belligerent, yeah, but they don't premeditate things. They don't fucking plan things out. They don't fucking do. They do like, oh, like you startled me and I thought I was alone, and I kind of just hit you a couple times because you freaked me out. They don't do like, I'm gonna jump on you and pound you into the fucking cement kind of deal. It's more so like you kind of freaked me out a little bit. I'm a bit tense. I have a general delirium about me. It's not actual, like, genuine, thought out, psychotic violence. They're not actually like violent themselves. They're normally, it's like, oh, I was scared in this moment, so I hit someone, and I'm sorry about it, and they're normally very apologetic after the fact, like, oh shit, I'm sorry, like, I didn't mean to hurt you. It's not the growling, frothing at the mouth, fucking pummeling some woman into the dirt because she looked at you funny.
Yeah, which is the kind of crime that you've got to commit to actually present to the WA Children's Court.
Yeah.
You know, you've either got to do something really serious like that, or you've got a long list of other shit like stealing cars or burglaries or whatever.
Which is also
yeah,
like,
you can't.
someone with actual FASD probably couldn't do those things because they wouldn't have the long-term planning or station of mind to do it in the first place. Like, it's just not a thing for them.
Right. So yeah, it's just like we need more funding so that we can lengthen the list of excuses that kids can use to get off for horrific crimes.
Yeah, especially when we were importing more new and exotic, psychotic, rapey ethnicities and their youth.
Yeah, as if we didn't have enough. Okay. So there was a Senate inquiry into missing and murdered First Nations women. This was in WA. So I remember we covered this when the report came out initially, but there are literally hundreds of Aboriginal women, mainly in the northwest of the country, who are just unaccounted for. They literally just don't know where they are. And most of them, as you can imagine, are probably dead. It is usually because of violent partners, like beating them to death or something, or it's also that, you know, they just went walkabout and, you know, got dehydrated and died out in the desert or something like that. That's all too often what it is. But then, you know, when you've got a kid like, shit, why can't I remember his name now? That Aboriginal kid who was like bashed up. Anyway, there was like, you know, all these vigils, protests for him. There were protests in America. And it was all to do with the fact that, you know, this kid was supposedly beaten up by a couple of white guys. It turned out that, yeah, while that may have been the case, race had nothing to do with it. It was to do with crime that was going on in the area. But anyway, you know, I might sound a bit like Larry Elder or someone, but, you know, saying, what about black on black crime? You know, I prefer to talk about black on white crime. That's what I much prefer to talk about. But it is certainly interesting that, you know, when you just get this one case, this one anomaly, something that is so far away from what usually happens, that the media goes and jumps all over it. The media, for the most part, regarding all of these Aboriginal women, hundreds, who have gone missing and are likely dead, barely gets a mention. However, they will mention it when it provides them with an excuse to attack the police. So this Senate inquiry was held, as I said, right here in Perth. And the WA police minister, the WA police minister did turn up and issued an invitation to WA police to also turn up and contribute to it. Now, the WA police did not do that, and this has been described as an absolute disrespect. This was from stakeholders in this inquiry, which was basically relatives of these Aboriginal women who have gone missing. And look, there's not really any reason out here. I wasn't able to find one anyway, like a police statement or something saying why no one from WA police turned up to this inquiry. I'm going to guess because it probably would have been even worse PR for them in not turning up. You know, they're getting bad PR here because they're being attacked for not turning up. But what if they had actually turned up and faced questions from the
It would have been a
senators
ball
during that
busting.
inquiry.
It would have been like it would have just been a straight ball busting. They actually did this recently where there was a case for some kind of brutality in some fucking Northbridge thing, and they turned up as a part of their strike. Oh, they didn't. Sorry, they didn't turn up as a part of their strike and just said like "fuck you." We're not gonna face this music. Basically, you don't pay us enough to face this music.
Right, and I mean, you know, I'm still always reluctant to defend the police considering how they treat our guys and some of the harassment that they put them through. But, you know, when it just comes to everyday things like, say, policing Aboriginal communities, I have to be sympathetic. I have to be. It's not an easy job to go and do. You're going out doing shit that no one else wants to fucking do, and you obviously deserve to get paid for doing that, for discharging your services in that way. And
you can like the idea of a policing force without liking the ideology that runs it. Because, you know, like, you know, in our world, we could create a much more ideal policing force.
Yeah, and I mean, look, a lot of the cops who are currently in the system, unfortunately, they are fuckwits, but the reason for that is because the system has selected for them and has made it so that the more honourable police officers are not serving anymore, like Zachary Rolfe, for example.
Yep.
You know, and yeah, I mean, he did say he used the C word to describe them once. How the fuck could you not? Working in the Northern Territory, it would have been the only demographic of people that he worked with. Of course, he had a bit of basic pattern recognition and expressed that verbally, you know. And I'm sure, yeah, it was more than one text message, but so what? Does not mean that he went out and killed Aboriginal people, because he fucking didn't. He actually worked for about a half an hour to keep that one alive that he shot after he got stabbed in the neck by a pair of scissors.
And where is he now?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
not in the police force.
Credit to him. He tried to hold on to his job. He really did try to hold on to it. But yeah, in the end, he was terminated. So yeah, this would have been, and as I said before, I think this is their way of again just trying to shift the focus onto whitey, because obviously these Aboriginal women, they're not being killed by white guys. And they're certainly not being killed by the WA police. They're getting killed by blackfellas, okay? This is Aboriginal and Aboriginal crime, plain and simple. But they want to still actually divert attention onto white police officers for supposedly not doing their jobs, right? Even though this comes from the same people who say that, like, police are a burden on their communities and essentially shouldn't be working there, shouldn't be operating there. Oh, but at the same time, you've got to take the blame for all of these missing women.
Well, damn. So okay. Sorry that you, the wife you beat and fucking like threw in some ditch somewhere is still missing, fucking Gordon.
Gordon. Run, Gordon. All right, so let's talk about drugs here. So we had...
There was a music festival...
Hopefully none of our listeners are, partaking. So this was at a Sydney music festival, Knockout Outdoor Music Festival. This was in Western Sydney on the weekend, I believe. So you had a 26-year-old man and a 21-year-old man who both died from drug overdoses. They were suspected anyway to have taken those drugs at the festival. Now, Chris Minns is actually, I thought he said something really pertinent here. I was like, yes, very well put. He was told that, this is why you need pill testing. Essentially the Greens are saying to him, well, look, if these young men had access to pill testing, they would have, this is basically what it means. They would have known that those drugs were dangerous and therefore not taken them. Okay, so this is how Chris Minns responded. He said, in many cases, the act of taking MDMA, because that's what it was ecstasy, With an extremely hot day and a lack of water is a toxic combination that could take your life. So it's not simply the case that people are taking compromised drugs, and a pill testing regime would allow a festival goer to understand that. Yes, very well put. Basically, he's saying that if you take a large amount of MDMA, that is the toxic chemical. Okay? That's what it is. That is the poisonous thing that
That's how
ends up killing
MDMA
you.
works.
Yeah. So to say that you need pill testing, like for what? To show you that there's MDMA in it? That's the whole
Okay.
idea. No,
All right.
and I'll
So
tell you
I found a
why they
solution.
actually want. Yeah, but the people who want to use the pill testing, they're actually using it to see how good their drugs are. And the stronger the better. That's what they're looking for. Otherwise, you wouldn't be buying them.
You need the Sharia morality EMTs. They wear steel-toed boots and they have bags full of naloxone. And feel free to report that, they're not going to go to the police, but feel free to report that your friend is now frothing at the mouth and overdosing on MDMA. They'll give him the naloxone, wait until he regains consciousness, and then kick him in the ass repeatedly with the steel-toed boots.
If we need that, then okay, whatever.
Fuck it.
But yeah, look,
unfortunately,
again,
we do have retrobates, and they do need a morality police.
Look, I say again, old system that actually worked at the time for the brief time it was used. Drug bins. Okay, there's an amnesty point where there's no sniffer dogs and there's no police, and you have a bin where you're free to dispose of all your drugs, and you won't get charged with anything, and then you're free to go to the music festival. Do that, because that was actually really successful. People would say, all right, I don't want to be caught with these. Boom, into the bin it goes, and they don't have to worry about police charges either. It's a nice little compromise, and it actually did work when they used it. I don't know why governments aren't talking about that. Anyway.
But someone is getting a foot up their ass.
So let's see how your capital city, assuming you live in a capital city, how you're going in the housing market at the moment. If you're a property owner, basically you should be pleased. If you're a renter, you should not. So these figures are going from the last month. 1.7% increase in property in Adelaide. The median house value is $742,909. The median unit value, $464,000. I won't read all of these out, so how about I just read out the percentages for people. So Brisbane has gone up 1.3%. Canberra, only 0.2%. Does Rand own a house in Canberra? He wouldn't be getting much return.
I wouldn't say own, but lives rent-free.
Okay, well, that's good. Darwin, only 0.1%. All right, there you go. Maybe if you want to buy a house, you should go there. Hobart, 0.6%. Melbourne, 0.4%, but this one I will read out the median value. For a house, $933,000. For a unit, $612,000. Here in Perth, 1.3% increase. Remember, this is only in a month. Our median value for a house, $646,000. For a unit, $437,000. And finally, in Sydney, 1% increase. Median house value, $1,381,000. And for a unit, $828,000. Holy shit. That is insane. The median house value for a unit in Sydney is nearly $1 million now.
Yeah. Well, it's Sydney.
It is.
And we're in hell Earth. Oh, hell inflation scale.
And here we are still unleashing more consumers into the market and more competitors for rental accommodation at the same time.
And more people who will soon enough default on their fucking loans and be kicked down to the rental market.
Yep. Or in some cases be made homeless.
Likely in most cases.
All right, so we'll go on to the upcoming IR changes that we should at least have the legislation pass the lower house by the end of the year for that. So the newly appointed Fair Work Ombudsman, that is Anna Booth, has said that she will use what will be legislated criminal penalties against employers who deliberately underpay or rip off their workers. This is also related to the migration shake-up that I mentioned before, because some of these criminal penalties are related to threatening foreign workers as well. So, yeah, in theory at least, some of these employers could go to jail. So that is what Tony Burke has promised in the upcoming changes. So there will be criminal penalties that can result in jail time for employers. So she said, certainly once the law has passed and there is a criminal liability, as long as the criminal standard of proof has been met, then the criminal penalties could flow as well as in the ultimate case of imprisonment. I think the criminal penalties, if they become law, will be an extremely good, specific, and general deterrent. And of course, we will enforce them. All right, I like all the rhetoric and everything, but yeah, like we said at the beginning of the show, don't know. I mean, these employers have been pretty good at evading the authorities for a long time. I don't see why they can't continue doing that, even if there are greater penalties now. It's more a case of, can you actually catch them in the act? And usually you can't. I mean, simply just having the threat of unemployment looming over your head is all you need. You don't, like we said before, all these things are implied. You don't actually have to tell someone, hey, I'm going to sack you, or hey, I'm going to remove your work sponsorship or whatever.
If you actually stop working, you're going to be leaving this country. Oh. I should try not to get fired then.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll wait and see when those laws eventually do pass, likely before the end of the year. So also part of these changes is a plan to phase out special enterprise agreements that pay disabled workers below the minimum wage. So this is there's two ways you can get around. Actually, no, probably three main ways you can get around paying the minimum wage. One is if you're under 18, so you're not an adult. Another is that you simply just make it volunteer work, so you're allowed to work for nothing. But the other one that is not that well known is that people on disabilities can be paid up to only half of the minimum wage. You can't pay them any less than that, less than half the minimum wage. But usually what happens is you've got an employer who has an agreement with the government to pay them half the minimum wage, and then the rest of it, the other half or whatever's left, is subsidized by the government. So it's sort of similar how they incentivize employers to take on apprentices like that.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of this is drawing on the disability report from the Royal Commission that we read out some of these findings in the last episode. And it's talking about the need to desegregate the workforce. Now, what they meant by this was the segregation between disabled and non-disabled Australian workers. And they said that there was exploitation in the system, as you can imagine. People being underpaid, perhaps they were actually working really hard and doing everything that a normal worker would do, was fulfilling the same kind of productivity and work roles, but was still subject to these very, very low wages. And I have absolutely no doubt at all that there are employers who have been doing that. Now, that said, there are only around 20,000 people who are on this program, these special enterprise agreements. But it did find, that is, the Royal Commission found, that some of these people were on as little as $7 an hour. Okay?
What the fuck?
Yeah. Now, I don't know how that works, because what's the minimum wage? Like $20 or something?
Yeah.
Half of 20 is not 7, so I don't know how they were getting away with that. But nonetheless, that we give you an idea that there is
Less
obviously
than a
exploitation.
yeah,
Yeah, but
a little over a functional third.
hmm. um, so but employer groups, this is another thing that they're actually attacking. They don't like any of these changes that are coming up, and even with this one. So they've put together their own little report saying that it's going to cost industry over $1 billion in like extra wages or lost productivity or whatever the hell it is. Um, yeah, so they are still managing to, they want to phase that out. I would say though that like I wouldn't want to see this program like, well, okay, they are abolishing this program, but I wouldn't like to see this at least, the function of it completely phased out, because I think it is a good thing for a lot of these people to be working. Disabled people working is a good thing, generally speaking, and it's good for them. You know, I can't think of anything like much worse. Like if I was a paraplegic and
I
all I
had
did was sit
nothing
in
to
my
do.
wheelchair all day. You know,
It'd drive
if
me
if I
fucking
was, I would probably
insane.
just do this show all day or something. I'd have to find some other meaning.
Hey,
But
don't dox
like,
yourself.
but just like, uh, yeah, I have the same Eric Stryker issue. Um, but yeah, you gotta, if you live a totally bloody passive, inactive life like that, like fuck, man, that is just, you're gonna create hell for yourself.
Brutal.
So I hope a lot of them can still kind of keep these jobs, but pay them more. At least give them some more money.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like, here's one of my fucking, I guess, progressive statements. Treat the fucking disabled like normal fucking people. We're not fucking 5-year-olds giving them the death stares in the fucking mall.
No, I never do that. I remember Elaine in Seinfeld said that like she thought one of the reasons she thought she was a good person is that like she tried to look at disabled people for the same amount of time as she looked at everyone else. She didn't treat them any differently as she walked past.
Death
She's like,
stare.
I don't stare at them, like because staring at them would make look like freaks. But at the same time, I don't always look right away from them because I don't want to look like I'm repulsed by them either. So I look at them for the exact amount of time. Such a
Again,
Jewish
the
thing to say.
hypothesis that like or the theory that like basically like Seinfeld is about Jews interacting with Goyish society and trying to figure out why the fuck, like literally it ended with them all getting arrested, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of
like
the
a literally.
idea was to kind of show like just how cold-hearted all four of them were.
Well, yeah, it's fucking Jews interacting with Goyish society and not understanding why like shit didn't work out.
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's a pretty good way of putting it, and that's why I think it is actually good viewing, like good normie content for people. So long as you watch it, looking through those lenses, like
I was
knowing,
like,
like this
hey, you're
show is
about to watch
100%
Seinfeld.
Jewish.
You're about to watch Seinfeld. You're about to see Jewish morality on display in the Goyish
Yeah,
context of a world. And they all look
right.
insane.
Yeah, they do. I mean, like it gradually, like as the show goes on, they all become like more sort of
Neurotic.
sociopathic, particularly George. Like
Yeah.
George, basically is happy that he killed his fiance through the poison envelopes. At the beginning of the series, he wasn't like that.
And then
He
Kramer
couldn't.
dropped the N-bomb at the fucking Laugh Factory.
Well, yeah, Michael
He was the
Richards.
only guy. He was literally the only guy.
He was, yeah, he was the only one. Okay, anyway,
Uh,
what do we got here? All right, the last IR story here. So this is on the Senate crossbenchers. They want to sort of split up the series of IR legislation that's going through. So this, in particular, we're talking about Jackie Lambie and David Pocock. Like for the most part, they have actually been pretty receptive to this. You could perhaps say they lean left on industrial relations. But they're concerned with the kind of the pace of change that Tony Burke is proposing here, and they want things to slow down a bit. So they're just sort of introducing their own bills to, well, as it said here, to carve out 4 urgent worker safety measures and legislate them by the 1st of January. So this simply means that a lot of this stuff to do with patent bargaining or multi-employer bargaining, you may not see law on this until next year. Because, well, I know in the case of David Pocock, he complains about how little staff he has. So they basically just say that they don't have enough time and resources to be looking through it all. So, yeah, they want it to kind of just come through in dribs and drabs. Okay, let's go to the economy here. And we should know that Jim Chalmers, announced what was the first budget surplus in a long time. In fact, the last one was Peter Costello in the 2007 to 8 budget, because we got the GFC right after that. Anyway,
yeah,
the current surplus, I think, $22 billion. Now, there are current forecasts saying that this is just going to be a blip on the screen. Like, this is just going to be a one-off budget surplus to do with what was a kind of sudden increase. I wouldn't say boom, but increase in the price of commodities. And of course, whenever that happens, Australia does pretty well, considering how resource we're based here with our economy.
We're based on, like, fungibles.
Yeah, we are. But anyway, this report, I'm sorry, I don't see where this is from. Oh, wait, no, it's actually from these are government forecasts, actually. So it's coming from Treasury. It's actually saying that commodity exports may plummet by more than $100 billion in the next year. Whew. So that's from a high of $467 billion in the 12 months to the end of June. The value of Australia's resources and energy exports is tipped to fall to $400 billion this year and $352 billion next year. So yeah, that's over $100 billion in a little over a year. Shit. If that happens, yeah, the government certainly won't be saving as much money from taxes, royalties, and everything else. So, yeah, could be very, very fleeting. And it may explain why, Jim Chalmers has been reluctant to, say, announce big spending measures in other sectors of the economy, because he feels like this is just going to be a one-off budget surplus, and that's it.
But Doc, where's the resources revenue? Marty, where we're going, there will be no resources revenue.
Right. Very true. Okay. Let's do some education news. And here we're going to talk again about this fake sexual assault crisis that is apparently plaguing Australia's universities. Now, this was actually just that term. Sexual violence crisis was the way the ABC described it in this article. Now, this is where the Education Minister, Jason Clare, he's announced that there is likely to be a new watchdog that holds universities to account, and a new National Independent Student Ombudsman. And this is all to do with protecting Australian university students from sexual assault, apparently. Anyway, that's what it is. Now, I know we went through this before, but I just want to quickly read this out again. The National Student Safety Survey said that 14,300 students were subject to sexual violence in the university setting in 1 year, which was an average of 275 a week. Now, can anyone really believe that? That every week in an Australian university you have 275 sexual assaults? Maybe in Mumbai I could believe that, but not here in Australia. And look, as we went through
the first show that I was the guest as a guest, talking about like university life and etc. Like, it was bad, but it was never near that bad, and I imagine it's still not. And this is mostly because like they're not even perving on fucking white girls anymore. They're perving on fucking Indian girls.
On their own
Which also,
kind.
yeah, they're not even fucking interested in their own fucking women, to be honest. Not to that level. Not to the you know the risk of actually getting thrown into prison, which
No,
they
no,
won't.
definitely.
But the threat is there.
Right. So anyway, look, long story short, that student survey was done on a voluntary basis, okay? Meaning it was completely skewed, it's completely misleading. But nonetheless, Jason Clare seems to be taking it very, very seriously. And this is the proposal that he's putting forward, which of course would cost a lot of money. Now, universities are going to be resisting those plans because it is just another kind of layer of bureaucracy that interferes with what they do. Um, it also is because it's a shaming mechanism as well. It's always just used as a way of saying that the university isn't putting in the proper resources to protect students and just blaming them for it all the time. And they must know also that these numbers are fake, you know? So they know that considering the fact that they can't stop the fake attacks from happening, that's impossible. You know, what are they supposed to do about that? They know that this kind of data, these kind of statistics are just going to keep coming. And so that they will always be blamed for stuff that isn't even happening. So that's, why they're out there saying, no, this is bullshit. Surely there's other ways of dealing with this. And yeah, there is. Start actually taking accurate surveys. Then you wouldn't have that fucking problem. Okay,
Well,
last
they
thing on
won't.
here. Last thing on education. But unfortunately, we're still talking about body parts here. Is the rise of deep fake pornography being used as blackmail by students against their teachers. So this is mainly in high schools, as you can imagine. But one thing, though, that may be curbing that is, that today is the first day of term 4.
Yep.
And did you know that a new policy has rolled out nationwide to stop people in primary and high school from using mobile phones? The students, that is.
Good.
Now, they can bring them to school, but they're not allowed to use them during class time or recess and lunch. So that basically means you can bring them to school, turn them off,
Hey,
turn them back on when you leave.
back in my day, you could really keister a 3310 Nokia. Good luck keystering an iPhone, kid.
Yeah, because back then it was all about how small phones were.
Yeah.
Remember those days? The best
Yeah.
phone was the smallest
Remember when you
phone.
had like a NiCad brick that was basically bulletproof?
Yeah. And then poor Nokia weren't able to get into the smartphone market, or
No,
not
they,
very
they they
effectively.
tried with the Lumia. The Lumia was a good attempt, but I'm sorry, like, dude, the fucking Nokia, like, you fucking literally gave the people who wanted to buy Nokia bought like any of the 3000 series, and they're probably still using them today.
Probably. I heard that, like, what's that classic Nokia? Is it the 3310? I forget. But
3310.
like, it is that.
The
Yeah,
three the
they're
3000 series was pretty much the same. It was just like different. Like one had rubberized grips, one had like Snake on it, one had like some fucked up version of
yeah.
Tetris, and then different ringtones. One had a different one went away from the piezoelectric speaker to an actual diaphragm speaker. They're all pretty much the same though.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it was that. Whatever the black one was, that was sort of like, it was sort of looked like a cordless phone in a way. But anyway, they like had a resurgence in popularity. Well, basically two reasons, or well, same
IEDs.
reason, but two classes of people: criminals, of course, because there's no connection to the internet or anything on them, so
No
very hard to
GPS either.
trace. Yeah, but it's also, well, I guess you could call them cooked people who are into all the conspiracies and everything. I'm not saying that about white nationalists though, because they absolutely are trying to fucking get into our phones,
Oh
and
yes.
It is not paranoia to think that. It's a rational
if you have a
conclusion.
smartphone, by the way, like I'm not even fucking joking. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is written out in plain fucking law. Even if you turn it off, your GPS data is still being transmitted.
Right, and so with the 3310, you don't have that same kind of function. So that's why, people use it.
The material in it, the circuits in it doesn't exist physically. It is just a cellular telephone.
Right. Yeah. It's not really I don't know if that still meets the definition of computer. I guess it would to an extent.
It would have to have some kind of like advanced microcontroller in it. But yeah. Okay. A microcontroller is to a computer what like a fucking car is to like a hand crank.
Right. Yeah, no, it's still funny like how often people don't think of a smartphone as a computer. It absolutely is. Does everything a computer does.
It's also a surveillance device.
Yeah. But anyway, look, what they're talking about here is that kids have been using, deep fake porn, which is basically when you make it look like someone is, in a porn scene or whatever. You try and make it look as realistic as possible. And then you threaten someone like, give me a good grade, you mark my essay well, or I'm going to leak this. So apparently this has been an issue in high schools. So one of the ways they're dealing with this is, by just simply banning the use in schools. But, I mean, it's also just a real sad reflection on, how kids are able to get into this stuff from such a young age, and how they're obviously accessing porn at a very young age as well. And they're more interested in, say, white nationalists on Minecraft and Roblox grooming them, apparently. When
I remember back in year 7, like there was this one little like shit kid who was like like fucking showing people like, because I was in like like the schools have laptops generation. And he was like showing like fucking like porn videos because he was a little shitbag. Like honestly, he was a little reprobate, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's dead now. But he was showing kids porn videos. He actually got expelled for it, by the way.
Good.
Yeah, he deserved it. And he was like literally just being like, "Oh, look at this," and then fucking like literally showing you like moving his laptop over, and it's just straight up fucking pornography. And he got fucking expelled for that kind of stuff, and he should have, and everyone in the fucking class should have. And I was still in a generation where like okay, like we're probably like maybe we'll get interested in that later, but like we're still like early teenagers where we're not really interested in that. We're more so just interested in like being social and hanging out and forming like social bonds with each other. I look at my nephews. Oh my fucking god! Like one of my nephews is because of like fucking older brothers is like like only a few years, well, like only about like a decade younger than me, and holy Christ, the stories that I've heard from him about school, where like they're going around their smartphones, like trading fingering videos and etc.
Oh man, yeah. Like, I mean, if I can also do the back in my day thing, I'm a bit older than you, so in primary school, VHS was still used, and I remember that was basically the only way that you could get porn on video back then. So I just remember that, because unfortunately this is always true for teenage boys. To a large extent, your social cred is based on how many adult things have you seen. That might have been a reason that kid you were talking about was showing the porn around. It's just like, look at me, how I'm the young kid, yet I've still been able to get all this porn at a young age, that kind of thing. And yeah, there was one kid who he had like an older cousin, and through that cousin, he was able to get like all these VHS videos of hardcore porn. And whenever we went to like a sleepover party, he would bring that porn with him, because he was really just showing off. And the first porn I ever watched, you know what it fucking was? It was anime rape porn. Well, I'm sure we all know that stuff does exist. And I don't know, like
Yeah,
maybe this was a
Kirk
good thing.
Eichenwald told me that it existed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but like
I didn't know
don't
about
know.
it before Kirk Eichenwald, and like he really opened my eyes. And he absolutely deserve that. Sorry, I'm just trying not to fucking laugh. He didn't deserve that assault gif.
Yeah, but I honestly like I don't like porn. I'm not just saying that. Like when I see it, it does actually kind of turn my stomach.
It
I'm
literally
thinking maybe
rots your
that's the
fucking
reason why.
brain.
Because I was horrified when I fucking saw this man. I was
Oh,
absolutely mortified. But
fucking. There's been fucking a million, like, like all saying like, oh yeah, like, you need to jack off to porn or you're gonna get prostate cancer. There's been a fucking 1,000 studies on how, like, literally it fucking rots your brain.
oh yeah, go to
We were not
yourbrainonporn.com.
meant for this.
Yeah, yeah.
This is
So
a
look,
new digital horror, or like, analog in the case of VHS, analog horror that we were exposed to just in this fucking century.
right. And by the way, this is also just how students use cyberbullying against each other. And, you know, when girls get involved in this, I think that's when it's at its nastiest.
Oh yeah.
They go up to some girl who they're jealous of or whatever it is. You know, you just have to make some online account calling them ugly, you know?
Oh no,
And
like,
girls' emotional reaction to that is extreme.
dude, fucking, you think fucking boys are like psychopathic? Like, especially like, teenage boys are like, oh, like, like, oh, look at those little fucking, like, look at those little reprobates going around breaking things. Oh, trust me, the fucking mind of a teenage girl is way worse. My
Oh, no.
eldest sister got bullied, and when the fucking her bullies were like interviewed by like the school counselor, they all admitted that they were trying to get her to kill herself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dark. Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Fucking teenage girls are a fucking nightmare, man.
I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes they will admit that, like the purpose of the bullying is, yeah, to actually encourage someone to kill themselves. Which,
It's like
holy shit.
it's like fucking chimpanzee henpicking. Like, female chimpanzees who will like find a big rock and then dome like the matrilin. It's like up the line from them. They'll just like, pick up a rock and dome them so they can get access to like, like the alpha of the chimpanzee group or something like that. But it's like, because we're fucking human beings, we're a lot more social, and we sometimes solve problems with rocks, not all the time. Yeah, congratulations, that behavior still fucking exists in women.
Yeah, it's sad. So look, if we need to take mobile phones away from them, I say so
Oh
be it.
yeah.
I think we got to go further than that because, like, I bet those kids would just be turning them on right after school just to get their fix, like it's a shot of heroin or something. And, they go straight back
Act the
into that
same.
virtual world. Yeah. Yeah. And I
Oh,
mean, Jason Clare did say that that's what he wants to see more of is actual IRL socializing, proper socializing where you're interacting, where you're talking, when you're
hey,
looking at the person.
so did Jim Goad. He actually, like, he was like, "Why are you coming in under a pseudonym with your camera off?" And I was like, look, I've already got my own social group and etc. I get your fucking, like, like, if
Oh, you
everyone
were
wants
on
to talk to.
that stream with Rand, were you, the other day?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
We
okay.
should get him on here. He's a nice guy.
Jim Goad.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a shame he writes the countercurrents, but
yeah.
no,
Well,
he's a brilliant writer though. He's
he
really got a
is.
way with words.
Honestly,
All right.
like,
Anyway,
I'm surprised he's still like, he's a fucking fighter because he's still like able to write and do everything after like basically a large chunk of his brain being fucking removed.
yeah, you wouldn't guess it when you hear him.
No, no, not at all.
Okay, so let's move on to the LGBT alphabet soup community. We're going to New South Wales here. They are saying that they are going to bring forward the laws banning gay conversion practices in the state.
Because they work.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, let's just put this into context here. This was an election promise from Chris Minns when he was campaigning from opposition. But they said that they weren't going to rush them through and have the appropriate meetings with stakeholders. Now, some of those stakeholders were, as you can imagine, from the Australian Christian lobby. And they have had at least a few meetings with the government about that. Now, a few days ago, the Australian Christian lobby put out a statement saying that due to the strong pushback that the ACL had put on the government, that the proposed laws were on ice. And indeed, it did look like the New South Wales Parliament was at least delaying the debate of the legislation. So this is where, tactically, perhaps the ACL slipped up, because it seems now that the New South Wales government is responding to that by saying, well, actually, no, we're not stalling it. And in fact, we're going to bring them forward. You're going to get them even sooner than what you had thought before. Now, this was because, when the ACL said that they had effectively put these laws or the legislation on ice, you had several LGBT lobby groups in the state come out and say that the Minns government was succumbing to the pressures of the religious right. Okay? So, yeah, that's what you get. Now, the leader of... Also, just point this out. One of the other people who was saying that was Alex Greenwich. Remember who he is? He's the guy who...
Mr. Lawsuit himself.
That's right. So he's taking Mark Latham to court for defamation for, the shit dick tweet that he put out. So look, Wendy Francis, she is the national director of the Australian Christian Lobby. She has come out recently talking about this, saying that no, it's actually the Labor government who is succumbing to the pressure of the LGBT lobby groups, and also of the independent MP Alex Greenwich. Now, she also said here, and this distinction, excuse me, is important. Something stuck in my throat. Sorry. Hopefully it's gone. What was I saying? Oh, yes. This distinction between what is actual gay conversion practices, as in like coercive ones, and then ones that are not. So Wendy Francis said that the ACL does support banning torturous conversion practices, but said a person should still be allowed to request prayers to change their sexuality. So here's what she said. We would definitely support any gay conversion therapy law that was outlawing any coercive practice. But then she went on to say, I'm seriously saying it's not occurring. If it's happening, let's call it out. Yeah, she's right. People think that this is like electroshock therapy, like you're showing the picture of a naked man and then you're given a huge jolt of electricity or something. Bob Brown, for example, claims that this was done to him when he was a teenager. I have trouble believing just that. In terms of the possibility of those kind of practices existing now, you will not find it. She's right when she says it's not occurring. It just isn't. No one would be stupid enough to do something like that. What she is pointing out, though, is that these laws don't just target something like that. And in fact, you don't need these laws at all because those kind of practices don't exist. They're just not there. So, well, let me go on to the next story, actually, which is from Victoria. And this will explain why that distinction has to be made here. So, a panel of medical and legal experts And two, I love how this is worded here in the Australian. 2 women negatively impacted by gender reassignment surgery have told a group of
Ooh.
Victorian MPs that the affirmation model of care is causing irreversible harm to children and undermining the parent-child relationship. Now, those 2 women who were negatively impacted by gender reassignment surgery, they're 2 men, okay, who thought they could become women, I guess, by
Those
mutilating
are
themselves.
dudes.
Yeah, um, so this consisted, these 2 men or women or whatever the hell, they are said to be detransitioners. Um, Jay Langendinos or something, and Mel Jeffries. Um, and this, yeah, what was this? Yeah, so these Victorian MPs, this group of Victorian MPs, this is basically like what little you have of the conservative faction of the Victorian Liberal Party. And, they're particularly miffed by this issue because, well, one, Victoria was the first state to introduce these laws um, uh, surrounding so called gay conversion practices. But two, because Moira Deeming, of course, was spectacularly expelled from the Victorian branch of the Liberal Party. Was expelled from the party room, I should say. As far as I know, she's still a rank and file member of the Liberal Party, but she was expelled from the parliamentary party. Anyway, what they were talking about here was the fact that no, that's not actually what these laws are designed to do. In the case of Victoria, anyway, it actually criminalizes a GP simply saying to a child that you may not actually have gender dysphoria, as they call it, and maybe you should just wait. Maybe you should think about it a little bit. The reason why is because that would
No.
violate what is referred to as the affirmation model. The affirmation
You
model
have to be
encourages
sacrificed to
children,
Moloch now.
right? It involves encouraging children who present with gender dysphoria to socially and then medically transition. This can involve the prescription of puberty blocker medication from ages 10 to 12 and cross sex hormones as early as the age of 14. And, as I said, the corollary is that it is illegal basically to tell them otherwise. You can't tell
We
them
live
that
in.
these puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, you can't tell them that that would be a bad thing because that would be going against the affirmation model.
Even if they take them like at a later age as well, saying like, oh yes, you're a consenting adult, you can consent to completely and utterly fucking your body up. Yeah, like even then, like say that they don't fucking 42% themselves. They basically get screwed in their late 30s by the fact that like, oh yeah, it turns out your hormones regulate the building, constructing, and fucking regulation of glands and enzymes in your system. So, oh yeah, your heart goes to shit. That was just a new one
Yeah.
that came out, by the way. Oh yeah,
If
your
you
muscles go to
literally
shit.
miss
Your
puberty,
bones
because that's what
break.
you're describing, it's like these kids, they don't go
Oh
through,
no,
or at least
even the ones who
they go
did.
through a warped form of it.
No, even the ones who actually went through puberty and took these, they're fucked in later life. The ones who
Oh,
did
sure.
go through didn't go through puberty and take these are fucked in their 20s.
Right. Yeah, and look, that's part of the reason why they had these 2 detransitioners, as they called them, people who regret it. And there's a huge mass of them now. I mean, a lot of these kids who are subjected to this kind of stuff, they're becoming adults now, and they're going to be launching class actions against these doctors and surgeons. Great. Awesome.
I
I
am a
can't wait
victim
for
of
that.
my parents' status signaling, or am I a victim of my single mother's,
Well,
Munchausen
well,
syndrome?
but on that note, yeah, I want them to take their parents to court as well for allowing all of that shit to happen and actively encouraging it.
Embarrass them. Take a person of the status signal class and embarrass them in the public. They'll kill themselves too.
Maybe, but man, these parents wouldn't shed a tear for them.
No.
Okay. So, a little bit of Aboriginal news. Apparently, the rate at which children are being removed from their parents' homes in South Australia, we rarely talk about Aboriginal people in the South Australian context, but apparently these rates are now approaching that of the stolen generation. Bet you didn't think I'd say that, eh? Okay, so this was a report released by South Australia's Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People. So it found, well, here's a quote. It says, in South Australia, it is predicted that without change by 2031, there will be as many as 140 of every 1,000 Aboriginal children in state care. If this predicted increase is realised, Aboriginal children will be being removed in numbers close to those of the stolen generation, the historical, systemic removal of Aboriginal children from their families.
I wonder why that happened in the first place.
Right, and you notice they say here, even with that increase, it would only be close to the level of the stolen generations. Well, considering the fact that, we're not going to run through it all now, but the fact that the stolen generations is a lie. And by the way, that guy, what was it, restricted, what's that, blacklisted research or something? Telegram channel. But anyway, he's got a YouTube video on
blacklisted research.
Yes, that's the one. Yep.
It is.
I haven't watched it yet, but basically, if you don't have the patience to read Windshuttle's 600-page book on this, you can go and watch that video if you want to get a crash course in it. But what that just says to me is the fact that this obviously does show how reluctant they are to remove children from care. Because if there was no reluctance to actually remove Aboriginal children from their parents and put them into care, if that wasn't there, that hindrance, then we would basically always see the current rates to be pretty much exactly the same as the stolen generation, right? But every time we seem to kind of be approaching it, as this report says is happening here, all of a sudden we back off again. And I guarantee you that is what's going to happen here. The rate of removal of Aboriginal children from their parents in South Australia is now going to go backwards because of this report. And that is not going to be because their family life has improved. No. It's going to be because Child Protective Services and the police are going to be made even more reluctant to actually remove them. That's what's going to happen.
I want the change in law or law enforcement. I want it to have a big ass footnote, all bold, all caps, fucking size, fucking 72. We did this to keep the children in the hands of Aborigines. Let's see how this fucking goes. Period. The results speak for themselves.
This also found, the same report, in 2020 to 21, 1 out of every 2 South Australian Aboriginal children was subject to at least one child protection notification, and that is compared to 1 out of every 12 non-Aboriginal children. Also found 1 in 3 Aboriginal children were reported to child protection authorities before they were born. Did you hear that? 1 in 3 Aboriginal children were reported to child protection authorities before they were born.
What are these pre-existing circumstances?
It's to do with things like drinking mothers and stuff, giving them FASD.
Or previous children.
Right, yeah, because they've got other kids that they've fucked up. Okay. So the Aboriginal Children's Commissioner found that First Nations children are increasingly being put in out-of-home care as well. So this predicts that 14% of Aboriginal children in South Australia will be in state care by 2031. Oh my God. They're the other stats. Okay. Now,
gotta love it.
In New South Wales, they are reportedly refusing to address calls from within the party itself to implement a specific policy that would stop Indigenous domestic violence victims being charged for retracting their complaints against their abusers. So, yeah, this is something not too known about. Something I'm sure we're familiar with.
Is that the "I'm gonna beat you again, bitch" clause?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that's actually what's happening here. Is they're getting bashed up by their husbands or boyfriends. They go to the police, and then they say, "All right, well, I'm going to bash you even more if you don't go and retract that statement." So, of course, they're aware that stuff like that is happening. And, and I guess rightly so, they're saying, look, it's really unfair to then go and level criminal charges against these women because it's obvious what's happening here. But it seems like they're only caring about that when it's happening with Aboriginal women, because it happens in those communities much more than any other. Always remember, they are the most criminal race of people in the world per capita, in the whole world.
Oh, those little fucking miscreants. Those little like ragdoll. Those ragamuffins.
Okay, so we've got a lot of calls from basically outside of the Labor Party in the Northern Territory for the Albanese government to intervene in what they call the Northern Territory's school funding crisis. Now, as you can imagine, this is relating to really Aborigines and Aborigines only. I think we went through last week about how the system is funded on simply the population. So, actually, I think we were talking about policing in that respect. So, when the Commonwealth apportions funding for this kind of stuff, you're going to get funding based on population rather than specific needs. Well, when it comes to education in the Northern Territory, funding is actually based on school attendance. So in other words, the more students who actually attend, not just the ones who are enrolled, but actually turn up, because remember, that's a big problem over there, that is sort of the carrot and the stick approach that they use there. You get more, you'll get more money. If you have more kids wagging, you're going to get less. So that's the way it works. They're basically saying that
get in the car and get the cane
model, it doesn't work. So they're asking for a huge injection of funds here that will in turn encourage those kids to actually attend, to actually go to school here. Sorry, guys. Again, it's not going to work. And they also pointed out something here, which is that once you go south of Alice Springs in the Northern Territory, there's actually no such thing as a high school. There's nothing.
No.
Right? They've got a few primary schools, and that's it. So if you live south of Alice Springs, you've got to travel. You've got to go and board north of Alice Springs somewhere if you want to go to high school. So they're asking, for solutions there. I don't know what that would involve. You really just have to build high schools down in those communities, really. Not that they would attend, but not much else you can do about it.
Or hire NCA pilots day by day at a reasonable wage because they just struck as well.
Right. Okay, and last story on A News is that Mark Dreyfus is being pushed to provide assurance to Australians that $83 million in taxpayer funding being given to the North Australian Aboriginal Justice Agency is not being misused. So the Shadow Attorney General, Michaelia Cash, put this request to Mark Dreyfus the other day, basically saying that this money is unaccounted for, as in we know that they have $83 million in that funding, but we don't have any details on how it's been apportioned or how it's being spent.
You should have just asked him, how much of this money is being funneled into B'nai B'rith?
Oh, well, there's that too. Yeah. But I mean, if you need another reason to vote no, just remember, this is what always happens. All of these Aboriginal bodies, whether they're advisory groups or other layers of bureaucracy, whatever the hell they are, they just get money fucking thrown at them and then they have no idea where it's being spent. They don't know where it's going, and they're certainly
Back in
not
the
seeing
day,
results.
Attic money turned up in Israel.
Okay, well, look, I don't deny that for a second. A lot of it turned up in Jeff Clark's pocket as well,
Yes.
the guy who was
Oh,
leading
yeah.
Attic. And John Howard abolished it. And actually, that's brought up a lot of the time by the Yes camp as a reason why we need the voice to be constitutionally enshrined, because then you can't abolish it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that corrupt body that put money into the hands of Israelis and Jeff Clark's pocket, now you can't even get rid of it. Thankfully, we're going to defeat it on the weekend. So, all right. Let's talk a little bit about
They didn't
Lidia.
ask me for my identification. The AUC already said that like I could vote at multiple electorates with multiple places in my electorate, and all those votes would still be counted because there's people with mental health issues who would get erratic apparently, and yeah. No cameras, no ID, and all I had to do was go in there and just say that I'm this person from this electorate. Guy didn't even have the guy had a laptop. He pretended to type something in because I watched him because he didn't type in my name. I know that for sure. And he gave me a little ballot, and I went off to the signing booth, and I fucking did the NO, and then I put it in the fucking little receptacle. So let's see how that goes. Did it go different for you, Finian?
I don't know. I'm looking forward to doing a good stream on the weekend and enjoying a few beers in celebration. That's all. Anyway,
let's rock and roll then.
You see Lydia Thorpe's press conference?
Kvetch.
Right. So, look, we've got another video that has emerged of someone, and by the way, we don't know who it is, and Mehdi doesn't know who it is either, even though, you know, some people are saying it's him. It's not him. He doesn't know who it is either. And it was, I don't know, maybe it was a copycat type thing, but, you know, you've got a guy doing a Roman salute, burning an Aboriginal flag with a balaclava on. Now, Lydia Thorpe is saying that this was a death threat. Indeed, this is how many media outlets are describing it as. Yes, she was tagged in the video, meaning that it was directed to her, among others. But, I mean, I encourage people to actually go out and watch the video. I think you kind of got to read the subtitles because he's disguised his voice. There is no violent threat made there. And if you listen to our last episode where I spoke to Mehdi, you know, he's up on charges now for supposedly threatening the life of Lydia Thorpe. Again, you know, yeah, she's mentioned in the video, but there's absolutely no violent threat made against her or anyone else, for that matter. And, you know, isn't it funny they sprung that on him more than a year after the video had been put out? Surely, if there had been a violent threat in the video, they would have laid charges at the time because it would have been obvious. You know,
well, no, like now it's politically expedient.
Yeah, well, I mean, they weren't able to get him on anything else. So then they're like, oh, God, maybe we can get him for this. It's a long shot, but maybe we'll go for, you know, for violence instead, for threat of violence instead. Now, look, I'd watched Insiders, actually. They were talking about this, and they were at least honest enough to say that most of what Lydia Thorpe said in this press conference was just absurd. Not that part of it. You know, they're still going to say that neo-Nazis are a dangerous threat and they're out there issuing vile abuse and death threats against politicians and other people from the Yes campaign all the time. But Lydia also said that the referendum itself was a continuing part of the process of genocide against Aboriginal people. She also said that Anthony Albanese was deliberately using the referendum and the campaign to make Lydia Thorpe the target of the Australian far right and to deliberately put her in harm's way. Right?
What
she also said
bitch.
That. So she thinks it's like like this campaign for constitutional amendment and an Indigenous voice to Parliament is actually part of an elaborate neo-Nazi conspiracy to have her taken out.
Just cry more. Fucking see if you can cry hard enough to wash away your fake tan.
Yeah.
We've seen fucking pictures of you as a kid. You fucking 15 shades darker than you were then.
Yeah, her dad's a white guy. You can actually see him be interviewed by Andrew Bolt, where he basically said that he's ashamed of his daughter. He should be ashamed for having produced her, but anyway. Yeah, so I guess I don't have all that much to say on it other than I'll let her ridiculous statements speak for themselves. I don't think I need to explain how fucking absurd.
I'll let her drunken slurs speak for themselves, and I'll be ashamed for any fucking AFP agent. Hello, some of you may know me. But yeah, like I'll be ashamed for any AFP agent that has to defend her because she's a rag.
Yeah, I feel sorry for whatever psychologist has to deal with her.
Hey, at least when you're dealing with me, you're dealing with an uptight and round guy, and like, you know, when you try to jump over my fence, one of my alpacas fucking struck you to the ground. You shits. I bet one of you remembers that if you're listening.
Oh, you're doing a bit of venting, Nosy.
Yes. Yeah. No. Oh no! Trust me. It's all clear on the air. They know who I am, and they even know my fucking voice at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm in the clear for that.
I know they've heard the show. I know that for a fact. So,
yeah.
They may well be listening right now. Okay, so let's do a bit of state government news to round out the episode. Queensland, you had the State of the State address. So this was the Premier outlining future spending plans, basically. So this includes energy rebates. So small to medium-sized businesses will be able to claim up to $12,500 for buying energy-efficient appliances. So yeah, bet you're real surprised these are climate change measures. A $250 million fund to speed up Queensland's internet. Okay, I'm not really sure what to think there. I don't know how slow Queensland's internet is. Can't be slower than ours here in Perth. What else we got here? Eligible businesses that spend at least $8,000 on a range of energy-saving appliances that will be able to apply for a 50% rebate on. So there you go, more environmental stuff. The Queensland Quantum Academy. So that'll be introduced in schools and TAFEs, and that's in a bid to improve the efficiency of renewable energy and electric vehicles and batteries. Oh my God. So this is to do with training people in new green technologies. So these skills would include direct air capture to reverse climate change, new space technologies, advanced computing, sports tech, including treatment of concussion. Okay, this is obviously not climate change stuff. Medical sensors to treat diseases like Alzheimer's, and sensors to find the critical minerals to unlock the next mining boom. Oh, that one.
Okay, that's fine. All right. It seems like some fucking.
That doesn't sound very green, but anyway, that was included in there.
It seems like some like tenured professor fucking snuck his way into this shit.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Now the former deputy premier, Jackie Trad, has actually won a bid to forbid the publishing of a report by the Crime and Corruption Commission. So this was basically something that found against her. And if you ask me, is the reason why she's no longer in politics. And it's perhaps also the reason why Anastasia Palaszczuk is going to be contesting the next election. Jackie Trad was widely seen as the heir apparent, but then, she started getting involved in too much bad stuff. And the Triple C got on her back over it and she had to resign. But yeah, unfortunately, I wish I could tell you more about exactly what she did, but we can't because, she's won what is effectively a suppression order here. Okay, still in Queensland, but to the Liberal National Party, Amanda Stoker is now confirmed to be the candidate for next year's state election in the seat of Udaguru. I hope I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Don't even try.
It's obviously some kind of That is definitely Aboriginal Ooga Booga right there. Oodgaroo. Now...
Does it come with a side of chickpeas and, child cannibalism?
Now, I gotta say, like, I'm mildly pleased here because the most viable competitor was actually Andrew Lamming. Now, I still feel sorry for Andrew Lamming because he's the guy who had to quit after Channel 9 put a false story out about him, about taking an upskirt photo, like up the dress of like a female staff member. It was total crap. It never happened. Nonetheless, it, ruined him enough in the media for him to be forced to quit. And then he went up against Amanda Stoker here, but he's pulled out. Basically, he's found that he's not going to get the support. But look, Andrew Lamming is a moderate. Okay, Amanda Stoker is said to be a conservative, and so she even said during this kind of what is an informal kind of primary run for that pre-selection, she said that Andrew Lamming, what am I trying to? Oh yeah, supports late-term abortion of pregnancies, hasn't done anything in 2 decades in Parliament, and did not make any difference, and didn't support Tony Abbott. So these were various statements that were said that are attributed to Amanda Stoker by Andrew Lamming, actually. And this is actually in a part of a defamation document that's been served on Amanda Stoker by Andrew Lamming's lawyers. So yes, he is threatening defamation proceedings against Amanda Stoker here. This is perhaps sour grapes over the fact that he ended up finding his run for this Ooga Booga seat as untenable, and he seems to just kind of want to take down Amanda Stoker with him. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. It's pretty hard to find someone on defamation for saying something like you did nothing while you were in Parliament. I'd say the only thing there is the thing on late-term abortions. That's all. So maybe she got that wrong. I don't know. I haven't checked Andrew Lamming's records, but who knows? Okay, Tasmanian Libs. So I guess a bit of relief has been granted to Jeremy Rockcliffe. So he's the only Liberal Premier left in the country. It looked like he was going to be forced into an early state election. The reason why, as we covered last week, is that the former State Attorney General, Elise Archer, had to go to the backbench due to some, I think they were leaked WhatsApp messages where she basically had a go at Jeremy Rockcliffe and others in the Liberal Party. But initially she said she was going to quit Parliament, and that just meant that the Liberal Party would have to go what they just call a recount, meaning that another member of the Liberal Party is just parachuted into her seat. But not if she decided to stay as an independent. If she decided to stay as an independent, well then they would no longer have a majority in the House, and they'd be forced to go to an early election. Yep. So she was threatening that for a little while. For a little while she was saying, oh, actually, I think because of the amount of support that I've been shown ever since these messages got leaked, I think I've still got a viable political career. And she did consider that over a few days. But I'm sure to Jeremy Rockcliffe's relief, she has said, actually, no, she is just going to leave Parliament. And so therefore they're just going to the recount. So at the same time, you have John Tucker. John Tucker is one of the members of the Liberal Party who did turn independent and actually put the Liberal government into minority government. If you didn't know that, they are currently in minority government, and they simply secure the support of independents to maintain their grip on power, which is very, very slight. Anyway, he was saying that what should actually happen now is that the Deputy Premier, Michael Ferguson, should launch a challenge for the leadership. And he said that Michael Ferguson risks being the Peter Costello of Tasmanian politics. by that, of course, he's referring to the fact that in the 13 years that Peter Costello was deputy leader of the Liberal Party, he never challenged John Howard for the leadership. And he's basically saying, hey, if you want a chance to actually take the leadership, you've got to take it now. Because probably the next election,
otherwise you'll be fucked.
Labor's going to be voted in, and they'll probably be in for a long time. So unless you want to lead them, lead the Liberal Party from opposition back into government, which is something that'll probably take you at least 8 years, you need to go for the leadership right now. So, yeah, he's probably right as well. Okay,
we shall see.
Jacinta Allen, of course, is the new Premier of Victoria. She also announced her new ministry. It's a significant reshuffle. So I'm looking at the list here. It looks like there are at least 20 names I would have to rattle off, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to read the first two. So Ben Carroll, Minister for Education, Minister for Medical Research. He is also Deputy Premier, and he's also the one you might remember who initially was going to challenge for the leadership, but Daniel Andrews just put him back in his box. We also had Tim Pallas. He was another person who some people said was, perhaps a leadership contender, but not as much as Ben Carroll. He has been made Treasurer, Minister for Industrial Relations, and Minister for Economic Growth. And look, a whole bunch of others. Just Google it if you want to read it. It's a bit boring for me to read all those names out. So that's all I'll say on the
tedious
reshuffle. It is a bit tedious, yeah. So I have to point out that, remember, Jacinta Allen, obviously she was Deputy Premier before, but she was also Minister for Transport and Infrastructure. And I'd like to remind people that she was the minister responsible for banning Sky News at Sydney train stations. Do we remember when that happened? This was about 3 or 4 years ago. And what it was when you had on Sky News an interview with Blair Cottrell.
Oh,
you remember
yes,
that?
I remember fucking watching your show, listening to your show, sorry. Driving down the freeway and listening to that. Yeah.
That was one of our I'm pretty sure that was in our first 6 months of starting the Racist War. We covered that, and I remember we played some of the audio because she gave this train wreck fucking interview about it.
Oh god, it was a real fucking kvetch interview too.
Yeah, so obviously not uncommon to see the news on at the train station somewhere, and she banned it because she said that Sky News was giving a platform to neo-Nazis. And what's particularly ironic about that? The ABC and SBS have both platformed Blair Cottrell previously, but they were only going to focus on Sky News.
Platform me, I'm much worse.
More relevant to more recent news is that being in charge of the infrastructure side of that portfolio, she was the minister most responsible for the debacle over the cancellation of the Commonwealth Games. Okay, this was her. She might be lucky in that Daniel Andrews seemed to cop most of the flack for that, but yes, she was the minister responsible. And we now have reports that the Victorian government actually hired lawyers to negotiate the cancellation of the Commonwealth Games weeks before it officially made the announcement. So, they kept this secret for what was probably months. They knew that they were going to cancel the games, and they were basically trying to engage in damage control to the fullest extent possible before making the announcement. And part of doing that was hiring these lawyers to negotiate the cancellation deal. Now we've got information on that. It has cost the taxpayers over $1 million. That's pretty steep for lawyer fees. But my favorite part of this has to be the law firm that they hired, Arnold Bloch Liebler. That's right.
Oh, wow.
Mark Liebler's
That's surprising.
law firm. The same law firm that represents Brittany Higgins.
Brittany Higgins, that whore.
Yes. So, remember that the Victorian government, so far anyway, has had to pay $380 million in compensation to all the various stakeholders. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of people, a lot of organization, a lot of logistics, a lot of money involved in all of that. So it doesn't look like that investment at Arnold Bloch Leibler really helped them that much. So now, considering she is the Premier and she was the minister responsible at the time, you're seeing a little bit more scrutiny on Jacinta Allen. So she's not really getting her honeymoon period, let's say, as a result.
Well, she shouldn't.
No. Okay, so we'll close it off with just two stories. One on the federal Liberal Party. It looks like Andrew Constance may be the person who's going to take over the Senate spot left vacant by Maurice Payne. And the reason for that is that the moderates in New South Wales are getting behind him. Okay, this is the information that has been given anonymously to the Australian. They've always got their kind of Liberal Party insiders here. But you know who the other contender is here? He was a latecomer, but Dave Sharma. Okay, our former ambassador to Israel, former member for Wentworth. Right. So, I mean, if your choice is actually two moderates, one Andrew Constance and the other Dave Sharma, okay, fine, guys, get behind Andrew Constance. Just anything to keep fucking David Sharma out of the parliament. My God.
If you're going to be a Liberal Party stooge, at least be a sensible one.
This little dickhead, Drew Pavlou, he has to have one of the most highly punchable faces I've ever seen.
Backfuckman's Gesicht.
Right, but look, this is why I'm torn on this story, right? So he's been, he tried to overturn a series of fines that amounted to over $3,000. And this was for holding up a sign mocking the Chinese Communist Party outside of the Brisbane Chinese consulate. Now, for whatever reason, and this guy, he's like in his early 20s. He's still a university student, I believe. For some reason, he just does all of these anti-China, like anti-Chinese Communist Party stunts, like public stunts. Is what he does. He goes out and does these ridiculous protests, and he does them in a way to attract the most amount of attention, like extremely obnoxious shit.
To like, you know, call back again to the first time was, I guess, like, you have to be backed by some kind of state entity to actually do that in Australian universities, period. Even still to this day.
Right, well, look, he has been fined for this, though, and this is why I say I'm torn on this. I mean, like, I don't like this little dickhead. Like, I just don't understand why he obsesses over this. He's a Greek Australian. Like, what reason does he have to be obsessed with this stuff? But
he sounds like
what happened was the magistrate said that the sign that he was holding up. Oh wait, no, I'll read what was on the sign. Nothing happened on June 4, 1989. Changed my mind. Of course, he was referring to the Tiananmen Square massacre. And that's making reference to that stupid Stephen Crowder meme as well. So the magistrate found that the sign constituted political advertising. And that meant that he had to seek a permit for it. And because he was not given that permit, and because he refused to leave when security asked him to, he therefore broke the law. So the magistrate described him as defiant, insolent, and a smart aleck. Now, I agree with all those descriptions. That's definitely true. Oh, and he showed no remorse for his actions. Well, obviously, I mean, he tried to have the fine overturned. So, you know, he's basically arguing that he did nothing wrong. So, of course, he's not going to have remorse. But the reason why I say I'm torn on this is because, I'm sorry, that's still bullshit. You shouldn't get fined $3,000. And you also should never have to worry about seeking permission for displaying that of political advertising. So he said that it didn't like fall under the ambit of just regular speech. It constituted political advertising, and therefore you need, you know how like political adverts end with authorized by bloody blah in this place, Canberra. He needed actually something like that and the relevant permit to go along with it. That's a load of shit. You shouldn't have to do that.
That's bullshit. That part is bullshit. He's bullshit, but that part is bullshit.
Yes. Yep. In conclusion. Okay. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. We've given you, 2.5 hours today. Episodes do seem to get longer. But yeah, look, I'll say we're trying to get Randbot on Saturday. I hope he comes on. I hope he hasn't had too much to drink. But yeah, do join us. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 5 p.m. Perth time. We'll have a few people on. Ryan Fletcher will be on as well. Some other guests. But yeah, in any case, it'll definitely be more than myself and Nolsey. So
long live the fighters. Long live the freedom campaign of the PLO. Mashallah. Oh, yeah. They should be driven from the river into the sea.
Yeah, man. Right after I have my dinner, I'm going to start watch more Russia Today, watch more of this coverage because it's very interesting. But yeah, thanks, guys. Check us out at theroaster.biz, and hopefully we'll see you on Saturday.